I was eager up to now to watch Like a Dragon Yakuza, which is a series they released on Amazon Prime or Prime Videos. And as I said before, I am a huge fan of RGG Studios, of the Yakuza series, the Like a Dragon series, the spin offs, Judgments. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I've even seen the past renditions of, like, they made a film that was very true to the game lore and source. Um, kind of crazy, and very exaggerated, but it was fun. It was fun. So when I seen that they were coming out with this, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for months upon months. This has been on my mind, and yeah, it came out on the 24th of October. Um, and yeah, I watched it, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to expect because I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna have some takes that you probably might not agree with, and maybe some of you will. But as a true fan, I'm just gonna speak for myself and give my honest opinion. Um, but I was kind of on the fence with this series because I read every little thing. I've watched every little teaser that they released. I try to get just consume every bit and crumb that I could regarding this series. And uh, Miyamoto, the director, the game director for the Like a Dragon series or the Yakuza series, the games, he watched the first episode or the first half, and he was like, in an interview, he was like, "Oh, I was on the edge of my seat. I had to take a smoke break. It was very very well." So I was like, "Okay, I trust in him. I think it's gonna be good, right?" I seen Nishikiyama, and I was like, "Ooh, yes, he's convincing." But then I seen Kiryu's actor, and I was like, "Hmm." I've seen him in other projects where I was like, "Oh yeah, he's great," but he didn't sell me. He didn't convince me as this by the lovable Kiryu Kazuma, or Kazuma Kiryu. So I don't know. I was like, it was like this. It was teetering for me. But then recently in the game summit, uh, they kind of announced that Majima, um, they announced his actor, and they kind of gave another sneak preview, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm sold on Majima now. Um, Kiryu, I was kind of like, I was like, I'm gonna trust the process and stuff. So yeah, it was kind of like that for me. Uh, now, before watching the series itself, I did read in an interview that they didn't allow the act. Well, I don't know if it went for everyone on the cast, but they didn't allow basically uh Kiryu Kazuma, the actor, to play the games. So I don't know how I felt about that. I didn't. Well, now I'm gonna be honest with you. I that made me more nervous. That made me more nervous because I was like, "Oh, I hope this isn't a." Usually, especially with game adaptations, um, it's hit or miss. Some of them are good, some of them are great, some of them are, most of them are terrible. Though it's very hard to get a good video game adaptation on the screen. So I didn't want. I was praying to the gods. I don't know what gods, but I was praying that this wasn't a miss. I wanted it to be a home run, a grand slam, not even a home run. So yeah, I was like, you know what? I don't agree with the actor not being able to play the games for himself or draw from that. But to be honest with you, my opinion is I wish he was allowed and they were allowed to play the games because it not that they missed out or that it's worse because they didn't play the game. It's okay. It's decent. But I feel like if he was able to play the game, you would be able to, you know, draw more from the character and kind of even if you play the games and then you make it your own portrayal, that's fine, but at least you have an understanding. Like I feel like it was he went in blindly to this role, but he did capture the essence of Kiryu. And every character. Nishiki Yama killed it. That actor killed it. Majima, obviously, I believe he does have experience with the games because he voices a character in Like a Dragon, and now he's playing Majima, so he probably does have that familiarity with the character, and so yeah, he killed it as well. But I don't know. Now, when it comes down to the series itself, they it's interesting the way they chose to tell the story, because they jump two different times. So 2005, I believe, and 1995 or back to the 90s. So it's always like jumping from one timeline to another, and back. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I had to rewatch the first 3 episodes again and again and again because at first I had the feeling of, okay, like you see the characters if you're well versed with the series, the game series, you know the characters. You know the characters. But for me it felt like they're like, okay, we're going to take these lovable known characters and we're going to pretty much make our own story and we're going to just fit them in. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's Kiryu, that's Majima, that's Nishikiyama, Yumi, all these characters that you know, but not in the story that you know. It's in a different one. Taking some inspiration from, like, it's weird. Like imagine you it's like the Joker basically, the Todd Phillips Joker. Like we all know who the Joker is. We all know the crown clown prince of crime. Why can I not speak? Fuck. We know him from the comics, the video games, and all in all, the portrayals of the Jokers throughout the years have been consistent. He's been this maniac, this crazy character that you you know, but the this Joker is like, okay, yeah, that's the character you all know and love, but it's not gonna be the same origin stories. It's not gonna be what you know, and it's okay. It works if you do it correctly. But then, like, look at Joker 2. And I know it's a musical, and obviously there's a bunch of other reasons why it did so bad, but they missed with they struck out with Joker too. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to really talk about it, but yeah, it's the same thing. Like you use a well known character in your own universe, you just got to do it correctly. So for me, I'm not saying it's the best. Like a Dragon, it's okay. It's okay. It's like, oh yeah, okay. I know who this is. I know who that is. I see what they try to do, but they just could have done way better. But it is getting started. It is only the first 3 episodes. Um, but yeah, I just feel like those are the key points that I wanted to put out there. So yeah, not playing the games didn't hurt the portrayal of Kazuma Kiryu, but it could have added. Like it wasn't a win lose situation. It was a you could have just won and you could have benefited from it. Um, but all in all, I feel like every character they did well with the essence, and they kind of got it right as best as they possibly could without knowing the source material much. Um, yeah, that's basically what I have to say. But I am interested in seeing IGN's review. I'm going to take it lightly because it is, I don't know. When it comes down to like game critics and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I'll take it at with a grain of salt. But I am very interested in seeing others' opinions of the show. But that is mine. But yeah, let's jump into it.
When Like a Dragon Yakuza was announced, there was widely expressed concern over how it would capture the unique tone of Sega's long-running and beloved game series set in the world of Japanese organized crime. You may have heard, for instance, that there are no karaoke scenes in the 6-episode live-action Prime Video series.
That's crazy.
This has made some fans think the creators didn't truly understand the appeal of the games. Unfortunately, Like a Dragon also lacks any other moments of levity. It's an overly long, meandering, dreary melodrama that would be ignored if not for the name attached.
Kind of agree. I kind of agree with that.
Admittedly, the games are no strangers to melodrama. Their charm lies in finding the proper amount of camp absurdity to balance out the mob saga histrionics. Protagonist Kazuma Kiryu, played here by Ryoma Takeuchi, is a straight-laced man who constantly finds himself in absurd situations. The self-seriousness of each game's main plot is the foundation that allows the ridiculous events to become even more absurd in contrast. Instead of emulating any of the fun of playing Like a Dragon and its myriad follow-ups, these 6 episodes tell a non-chronological, split timeline story of Kiryu and friends Nishikiyama, Yumi, Miho, and Aiko as they go from living in an orphanage to being embroiled in an illegal combat sports betting league managed by the Yakuza to living through the fallout 10 years later. There's a floaty and dreamlike quality where events often seem to pass by without adequate resolution. Story threads are introduced, then leave without much further thought.
I agree with that as well. And that's the thing. I'm gonna pause. That's the thing that I mean. Like if you're gonna choose that type of storytelling where you're jumping in 2 different parts of, let me full screen. 2 different parts of the timeline, right? Because obviously, if you know Yakuza, Kiryu goes to jail for 10 years. He has a 10-year sentence. He comes out in 2005, figures out that everything is different, everything's not the same, and he has to kind of adapt. You can't really just touch on something briefly and leave it with no resolution or conclusion, and I feel like that happens a lot within this series, where, as IGN just said, there's a lot of events that kind of start but don't finish, and it's underwhelming. I did find it underwhelming while watching the series, because it's like, ooh, okay, I remember now. I know what's gonna happen. Like, I'm expecting to see what I know happened, and it's like, nope, we're jumping back to 2005, and then oh no, flashback, and it's like, okay, and then it builds up to another event that went down, and then it's like, oh nope, 2005, and it's like, oh come on, man. Besides that, um, man, I do have to mention. If I don't mention it, I'm not a true Like a Dragon fan, as I claim. Um, in the video game, a major, vital, important person that you hear about a lot building up to the lore is Kazuma. Kazuma, right? Kazuma is basically Kiryu and Nishiki's adoptive father. The guy that basically took them under his wing, and in the game he is portrayed as this figure, this ominous figure, basically in the Yakuza, not to be fucked with, well respected. Whereas in the show, their portrayal is, I feel like, the polar opposite. Like, I feel like they didn't put respect on Kazuma's name, especially given his stature in the game versus his role. But as I said, again, taking video game characters, lovable characters, and kind of putting them, using them as basically like pieces, like, okay, this is how you can fit in the story that we're trying to portray, not in the story that pertains to you and to everyone. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, they did Kazuma dirty, and I needed to mention that. But yeah, let's continue on. So far, yes, I agree with majority of what has been said. Um,
Series is lightly inspired by the events of both Yakuza 0 and Yakuza, which diverges in some major directions, mostly oversimplifying. The original game's plot is reduced down to a rote tale of theft and revenge. We'll save spoiling the specifics, but it's both an unsatisfying setup and conclusion. And in shifting up the events
Yeah.
of Yakuza 0 to 1995 from 1988, there's now no commentary on the absurdity of bubble-era Tokyo real estate economics. It's actually strange how much money is flowing around at a time when in real-world Japan, it categorically wasn't. But the world of Yakuza is rendered well in other ways. The detailed set of Kamurocho is delightful. The show
That
is most
set is
enjoyable when you take in
incredible.
all the additional
They-
details
that-
of its
that-
world building,
yeah, it is
especially the
good.
cinema showing posters of period-accurate films. The final scenes here throw a ridiculous amount of the show's budget at extras, and it makes the place feel genuinely alive. As Nishikiyama, Kento Kaku has a severe cat-like look in his 2005 scenes, like you can't read his motivations at all, but you know not to cross him. In the 1995 scenes, he plays an unrecognizable version of the same character in a way that expresses some real range, even if what he's getting up to isn't at all
it's like
interesting.
a double
Munetaka
personality.
Aoki is cast brilliantly as Majima, though the show has no idea what to do with him. He's sparingly used in early episodes and disappointingly underfeatured in the finale. For
Yeah.
fans of the series, he hits the all-important Kiryu-chan at least once, but it oddly happens while he's off-screen. Just another sign that Majima isn't as big of a component of Like a Dragon.
Yeah. Pause again, because it is very. It deserves a pause. Majima. It is a running theme and he's basically a side character. Okay. For the longest time, Majima in the Yakuza series, to me, was like Waluigi in the Mario franchise. It's like we all love Waluigi. We want to see more of Waluigi, but he's only a side character. He's only in there when we need him to be, But if you're expecting a lot more, no. That's why in some of the Yakuza games, he was obviously what would you say, a co-protagonist in the Yakuza 0 game, but apart from that, he would pop up in like other Yakuza games, and then there was just one that he wasn't there at all, and it's like, oh my god, we want more of Majima. and it was kind of a joke. Even the voice character was the voice actor was like, "Oh, I'm a little disappointed that I'm, there's not much for me to do because Majima isn't needed." Um, and then surprise, surprise, in RGG Summit last month, they announced the Majima standalone game. See, that was the cops. I don't know if you can hear it, but that the cops, the sirens, it's because it's criminal. In the show, I feel like you have a bunch of just gems that you can use. You can, again, with the potential. I'm basing this off of what it could have been and the potential it had, and it's just subpar. And it's like there's no excuse for it to be subpar because you have the characters, you have the setting, you have the lore, you have the games, you have a whole bunch of just everything, just a recipe for total success. And you chose, maybe out of artistic value, for it to be when it could have been, this is amazing, and Majima sadly was yeah, Majima could have had a bigger role if they would have figured it out. Again, the character portrayal, no complaints there, no complaints there, but it just feels like, oh yeah, that's Majima, that's a crazy character, and he's gonna display a little bit of his craziness, but there's not really, they're not using him to its full potential, Man, I don't know, I hope I'm not the only one thinking this, or you know but yeah, it was kind of disappointing to see.
Dragon as he should be.
The Majima and Kiryu
All of the positives
combat
of this
scene, though,
adaptation
was
can't add up to something we'd recommend watching. Like a Dragon Yakuza feels very second screen. You'd never miss the specifics by looking away, but there's never enough actually going on to capture your attention. If you're unable to understand fluent Japanese and you're locked into reading the subtitles instead of checking your phone, you're likely to find this very boring.
お前一人時間が止まってんじゃないのか、カズマ。
Without the Like a Dragon name attached, this series would get very little attention. There's so little that's very Yakuza
Now,
in tone,
it is
and
dubbed.
it takes so little inspiration from the
It
games
is
that there's
dubbed,
hardly much
so
you'll
don't get
recognize from them.
discouraged if-
There's great character work from some of the cast, particularly Kento Kaku as Nishikiyama, but sadly, nothing very interesting for them to do.
a 4.
For
Ooh,
more TV reviews, check out what we thought of Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft.
interesting. They gave it a 4. See, I'm so much of a Yakuza fan, as I said, that I'm not gonna give it a 4. Maybe the person that made this review, like, it wasn't a bad review, but I just don't know if that person is well immersed into the Yakuza universe. It seems like they know what they're talking about. It seems like they know about the games, but I wouldn't give it a 4, honestly. Because if I had to, like, make points on what to judge it on, like the set, fucking 10 out of 10, right? The character portrayals would have ranked higher if they had all the source material and they were able to at least draw from that, not imitate or copy it necessarily, but just because it's like, okay, you are this character and yada yada yada. It's like, imagine them throwing you hints, and it's like you got to figure it out for yourself. it's like, you couldn't do your best, you know. So I would give it a, I would say I'd give it a 6. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Maybe a 5. Like a 6, a high 5, low 6, honestly. I think that's a fair rating for the show. Um it's not what it could have been. It had the potential to be at least a solid 8, 9, but sadly, yeah, they kind of fumbled. Hopefully they can recover though. But it's not bad. It's not terrible. Um yeah. Yeah. That's my take on the Like a Dragon series. Let me know if you watched it, if you're a Yakuza fan, what you thought of it. Cuz I'm also intrigued not only to see a huge outlet like IGN cover it, but the fans as well, you guys. But yeah, let's move on from that.